This video is proudly sponsored by VRWave because they offer a tailor-made solution to your lens inserts, and they cover a wide selection of VR headsets such as the Quest series, Pimax, PSVR2, HTC, Pico. Now, even if you don't wear glasses, it's important to protect your lenses, and of course if you do wear glasses, then it makes it all day comfortable. You can have blue light filter, and they also account for astigmatism, nearsighted and farsightedness. So check out my 5% discount in the notes below. So in today's video, I'm going to basically talk about the comparisons, and especially ones that are important to me, between X-Plane 12 and MSFS 2024. So first of all, let me know in the comments below what flight sim you think this is right now. This is X-Plane 12. Pretty damn gorgeous, I think you'll agree. And it's VR as well, so it's not going to look as good as in the headset. But which flight sim is better for you? Well, it's a controversial subject, I know, but I'm going to give you my thoughts on this, as I haven't done a video like this for a while. Now let's jump into MSFS 2024, and I think this first comparison really makes it very obvious that in terms of the visual fidelity, especially when it comes to the ground, when you've got photogrammetry and satellite imagery for the entire world, down to street level at times, pretty much anyway, it is MSFS 2024 that wins hands down. There is something very satisfying and very easy about the way you can just go anywhere in the world and it looks really, really good. I just love how in MSFS 2020 and 2024 you can, traverse the world, explore, find hidden treasures, and maybe embark upon a European tour or a world tour even, and visit places you've been in real life. You can really truly visit the world in MSFS, and in VR it's one of its strongest points, not just when you compare to X-Plane 12, but with any experience you can get whilst at home with a VR headset on. It probably is the best VR experience you can possibly have. I think so, but then I am biased being a flight simmer. But there is other things to consider. Now, X-Plane 12, which we're looking at right here, has a magic about it that you cannot get in 2020 and 2024. That is the feeling of flight. The fluid feeling of flying is absolutely still unmatched in this sim. And there's something else as well, which actually combines with the visual fidelity of X-Plane 12, and that is the lighting and atmosphere. There is something that's hard to put your finger on, but it's the combination of the visibility effects, the scattering, the lighting I've just mentioned. I don't know, it just gives you a sense of extreme immersion when you're in VR. Not to mention the traffic, you get a lot more realistic looking ground traffic and trains. The reflections just look that more lifelike to me, and everything feels sharper in terms of the textures of the ground as well. I think part of that is because this is not a streaming flight sim, which really is one of MSFS's strengths and weaknesses here, because it's great you can do all that, exploring and enjoy all that photogrammetry and scenery and everything, but with X-Plane 12 you can just install it anywhere on your hard drive, and if you go on holiday or anything like that, you can just fly completely offline without that need for an online connection. And there really is something to be said about that. But much like MSFS, that strength of X-Plane is also its weakness, because you can't really stream satellite data. Well, not in the native sim platform anyway. There are add-ons out there, in fact freeware and payware options, which enable you to actually stream satellite imagery into the sim, and it works really, really well. So the gap there is actually closer than you think. When it comes to things like clouds and weather, well, this is an interesting one, because I think X-Plane 12, the volumetric clouds look really good now. They're not perfect and they can behave in strange ways sometimes, but overall it's a massive improvement. But I do feel in terms of the clouds of MSFS, that's 2024, while they don't look quite as good in some aspects, I think overall it wins, just down to the fact there's less artifacts and weirdness going on. But you know what, I think Laminar are very close to beating MSFS when it comes to the cloud rendering. And also, of course, when it comes to the physics of the wind and turbulence. While it's a close one, I do feel though that X-Plane probably just edges it out there. But then when you think about the dynamic weather aspects, MSFS starts to win back some points once again, because for me the frontal systems of rain moving in and out is handled way better in MSFS. The way you can see shafts of rain appearing in the distance and they move with the wind, that is something I wanted in a flight sim for many years. And I think overall, if I had to, you know, score a point on the weather overall, I do feel Microsoft Flight Simulator still wins on that one. But it's close. When it comes to the user interface, well, this is a no-brainer in my opinion. X-Plane wins hands down. The UI system Asobo has implemented in MSFS 2024 specifically beggars belief. I just don't understand why they have made it so complicated in certain aspects, especially when it comes to controller bindings. I know some people might disagree with me on this one, but overall I think just the way the interface works is cumbersome, laggy. Things like the VR settings menu is a completely different place to the normal 2D menu. The way that you don't really have a proper flyby view, and the view system in general, it's just overly complicated. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say for that one. The X-Plane menu is just so much easier. Now, just to reiterate again, in terms of the flight modelling, well, this is another one that could be a video all on its own. In fact, I did make a very detailed flight model test between MSFS and X-Plane 12, and that video has got well over 300,000 views. So thank you for watching that, and if you'd like to see my opinion on that, which hasn't really changed at all, apart from the fact that perhaps MSFS has gotten a bit closer when it comes to that feeling of being on a cushion of air and in a constantly moving atmosphere. I think 2024 has improved on it, but overall X-Plane 12 just has that real fluid feeling of flight, especially for general aviation fans, and you really feel that definitely, especially in a motion rig as well, and that again is part of the magic of X-Plane 12. To give you a couple of examples, things like adverse yaw, side slipping, crosswinds, when you're on final approach, when you're quite close to the stall speed, it's almost like you can feel the wind rushing by you and the change in dynamics as the lack of lift or more lift appears. It's incredibly fluid. It really is just the word to use with X-Plane 12. And it's generally because it doesn't have a lookup table as such, but it uses aerofoils and surfaces of your wing and your fuselage and many aspects of the aircraft to calculate how the wind is behaving over that particular surface. It is great. In fact, it's that good that even Asobo has implemented this to some degree in MSFS as well, and that's where it's improved. But it's not X-Plane 12, let's just put it that way. Let's just have a chat about performance, because this is a big one. And admittedly, X-Plane 12 has really improved recently with its native OpenXR integration and with some upscaling modes. But when it comes to VR performance, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and especially 2024 is way ahead, especially now we have fixed and dynamic foveated rendering. It makes a huge difference, folks, to your VR performance, and it's a wonderful thing. So Asobo, thank you for including this finally. It really is a wonderful tool, and it can bring about up to 50 to 60% more improvement in performance. If you're really brave, you can even bring that size of the foveated box very close, so you get well over 100% improvement in performance. That's the difference between 45 frames per second and 90 frames per second, for example. DCS World still is better at it, and in fact what we really need at the time's recording, it's still not here, is a way to use DLSS 4 for the surrounding imagery and for steam gauges, but have a TAA and MSAA window for glass cockpits. That would be perfect. But in any case, X-Plane 12 doesn't have any of these features, and it does lag very far behind when it comes to performance. So to get a decent level of visual fidelity in a high resolution headset, you do need the most powerful computer you can get your hands on. Whether with MSFS, it is a lot more scalable and you can run it with a range of different systems. So before I give you my own personal conclusion, I'll just say one more thing, because I could go on and on about every single aspect of each sim, but I'll make this pretty short and sweet for you because, as I say, this is a very big discussion. But I'll just talk about the developers themselves. It must be said that Asobo tend to get their knickers in a twist sometimes when it comes to updates, and bugs appear quite a lot. And often they will shoot themselves in the foot by fixing something, which will then spawn a whole load of problems somewhere else in the sim. Laminar Research did do this quite a bit in the early days of X-Plane 11, but they have learned from this, and I do feel their updates are a little bit more solid. And slowly but surely, X-Plane 12 is getting better and better, especially when it comes to just the reliability of the sim itself, and just, you know, really improving many aspects of the core sim platform. And there is one aspect that I absolutely love about X-Plane 12, and that is you can opt out of a new update and continue using the previous update. With MSFS, once you've got that screen, it's a mandatory update and you have to adhere to it. You have to click on it and download that update, and whether this sim works better or not, that is it. You've got no choice. With X-Plane 12, it feels a little bit more customizable to you, and you can choose not to update if you don't wish to. And I do remember back in the day when there was a new update for X-Plane 11, sometimes there were some teething issues with it and you'd find out about it. So when you got that notification, you just didn't update and continued using your preferred version. And it's just those little things, those quality of life options, that make flight simming a lot more easier and bearable, especially when there is a sort of busy time of updates happening. So in conclusion for me, I think Asobo are in trouble right now, in the sense that X-Plane 12 is slowly but surely getting closer and closer than it ever has been before in being the #1 flight sim, especially for general aviation fans and for VR fans. If they could implement dynamic favorited rendering and maybe some sort of app to be able to stream satellite imagery within the platform itself, which I think will probably never happen due to licenses and that kind of thing, because let's face it, they can't really go up against Microsoft, a massive multi-billion pound company, if not more than that. I've no idea what they're worth, but yeah, a lot of money, put it that way. It's probably never going to happen in terms of the satellite imagery, I'm not sure. However, where it counts in terms of the flight modelling, the atmosphere and the reliability of the sim, I think X-Plane 12 is a much stronger contender than it ever has been before. However, I still think at this point in time, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is the absolute best flight sim for most of you out there, especially with the marketplace, the ease of use in terms of the world satellite data, not in terms of the UI, that's separate, you know, and just the performance is definitely that bit better. It is still the winner here, but it's getting, as I say, very close. But in any case, my conclusion is to support both developers. It's fantastic that we have two incredible flight simulators in this particular genre. So I would highly recommend that you buy both of them and enjoy them as much as you can. Let me know in the comments below what are your thoughts on this subject. Thank you for watching as always. Please feel free to subscribe and I'll see you again very soon. Bye bye for now.